On va repartir, être là à 14h. On se dépêche.
Bonjour.
Do you speak English?
Yes. For the caves.
For the caves? Okay.
Yes.
You are alone?
Yes.
Yes. So for one ticket, what language do you speak?
English prefer.
English?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to have over...
No, my French is not that good, so English is okay.
Okay. We have Dutch, we have German, we have Spanish. No?
English. Let's go for English. Yeah.
So, for one ticket, it's 11 euros.
Okay. This
Vous en prie, allez-y.
with audio guide?
Yes, with the audio guide, it's included.
Okay.
So, 9 euros for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Where did you came from, please? Where do you live?
Belgium.
Belgium. Okay. Thank you. So this is your ticket.
Okay.
For you, and you can come just here. I'm going to give you your audio guide. So it's in English. It's very simple to use the audio guide. You have just to push the number when you see it during your ride. There is nothing else to do. When you see a number, you have to push it, and after you can listen directly just here. Okay?
Okay.
So nothing else to do. The number one is just here. It's the start of the visit. And if you want, before you have the toilets just behind you. So you can start when you
easy.
want.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How long does it take the whole tour?
1 hour.
1 hour? Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy your visit.
Thank you.
My name is Louise, and I know this underground city well. I've already led several campaigns here. As you might have gathered, I'm an archaeologist, and I will have the pleasure of accompanying you on your tour. Just think, you're about to plunge more than 30 meters underground and walk through eras from times gone by. A few things to know before we start. First, take a look at this chapel right in front of you. Okay? Great. We'll come back to it soon. I'm not going to reveal everything straight away. Next, a few tips to help your exploring go smoothly. There are some signs along the way. These tell you which number to dial on your device. Also, please don't touch the walls. They are very fragile, and please don't use your flash when taking photos. Don't forget that the 10-hectare site also has a wooded park, a mini golf course, a tree climbing course, and a bar for refreshments. Plenty to enjoy while you're here. That's all for now. We can now begin our discovery of the underground city. Please assemble at point 2, just in front of the entrance. Throughout the ages, the underground city has lived 1,000 lives and had 1,000 uses. Let me tell you a bit about it before we enter the tunnels. It all started in the 15th century. The site was being used as a quarry back then. What were they extracting? It was chalk. They would spread it over the fields to make them more fertile. In the 17th century, the 30 Years' War was raging. The region was under attack. The inhabitants expanded the quarry and turned it into a refuge. After being inactive for a while, the quarry was put to use again in 1818, before being condemned 4 years later, following the death of the village mason, who was crushed by a huge chunk of chalk. The site was then forgotten about until Father Danicourt, a village priest with a passion for archaeology, set out to look for it in 1887. With the help of some volunteer parishioners, he found the entrance. Following some extensive excavation work, they transformed the underground area into a local tourist attraction. The attraction opened in 1906 and was named the Underground Refuges. A few years later, the First World War broke out. It's now time to go back in time and begin our visit. And all you have to do is pass through the underground door. Meet us at panel number 3 at the bottom of the stairs so we can explore the 17th century. So, what happened over those 4 centuries? We've been transported to Amiens, a hiding place in Picardy, a historical region of France. It was here, in these underground chambers, that the locals would shelter from attacks, particularly the attacks during the 30 Years' War between 1618 and 1648. There were more than 140 of these mouches in Naours, and each one was home to a family. Just imagine, Jean, a villager, has come to hide with his wife Lucy and their 8 children.
We have everything we need. We're very organised down here. Sometimes we stay underground for several days at a time, so we go down with everything we own, including our animals. Each hidey hole has a door that we close every evening at dusk. We sleep on straw mattresses and use candles or oil lamps for light. We have supplies to eat and drink. We fetch water from the river and cook our food on the hearth a few meters over.
Shall we take a look at the hearth? It's on the left as you leave the hiding place.
Dus heb je dit begrepen? Dit is de rotonde. En daar komen al die gangen op uit. Maar het is ingestopt geweest.
var 140 sådana här utrymmen.
Så häftigt.
Men tänk vad kallt det måste ha varit.
Ja, fy fan.
Om jag har frusit.
Gud, ja.
Jag börjar bli förkyld nu. Jag börjar bli förkyld nu. Och det var borta.
Here we are. This is an unusual hearth. For a start, it doesn't look like the hearths that we have at home. Look up. It's right above your head. This one is cut into the stone and measures 1 meter across and 30 meters long. Of the 6 hearths in our underground, this is the only one that still has traces of soot. The reason? Jean will explain. It looks like he's been following us.
The other hearths were used for ventilation, whereas this particular one was used for lighting a fire and cooking food. And now you're thinking, that doesn't seem too smart. The enemy can spot you a mile off with all that smoke. But we've already thought of that. The smoke flue is built at an angle. This means that the smoke comes out of the miller's chimney atop the hill. Even when we're being invaded, the miller stays above ground making food, even for the enemy. Crafty, innit? The enemy is completely oblivious.
Please do take a look at it. Then retrace your steps and take the left-hand corridor. After a few meters, you'll reach point 5, the chapel. Go inside. The chapel has 3 rooms. A central nave flanked by 2 other chambers that form side naves. A similar layout to a church, except that we're underground. We have everything. The altar, the statue of the Virgin Mary. There is even a chrism, the symbol of Christ, inscribed on the stone. There is also the Alpha and Omega, the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet, representing life and infinity. How far do these date back? It's hard to say. Father Danicourt, who rediscovered the site, doesn't mention them in the report of his findings. However, he does emphasize the role this place played in times of refuge. The chapel was hugely important to the villagers. During attacks, it gave the community a place to express their feelings of sorrow, of hope, and of fear. Father Danicourt was more than an archaeologist. He made the underground city into a tourist attraction. For hours on end, he would guide his visitors through the maze, lit only by candles or oil lamps. Father Danicourt wanted to offer visitors an experience that was educational as well as exciting, even if it meant embellishing reality or inventing a few tales. He also inspired the statues, street names, and some other features that you'll encounter on your way. For the next part of the visit, let's exit the chapel and take the left-hand corridor. Go straight ahead at the crossroads towards the stairs. Point 6 is at the top of the stairs. Mind your head.
Ouais, mieux, quoi. C'est bon, on suit. Attends. Lumière.
Dus we zijn eigenlijk hetzelfde. Wat is er daar?
When Father Danicourt discovered this room, it looked quite different. The rotunda was actually full of rubble. Nearly 4,000 cubic meters of stones had piled up following the landslide. Let's hear from the man himself.
4 winters. That's how long it took to clear this room. Talk about slave labor. Fortunately, my faithful parishioners were there to lend a hand. And that was just the first day. We then had to add reinforcements with 3 large pillars and fill the hole created by the landslide. To do that, we built a roof.
But Father Danicourt built more than a roof. He built a whole chapel. The one we saw when we arrived, to cover up the hole. This is actually a trompe-l'œil, a trick of the eye, being that the building doesn't have any windows or doors. The Virgin Mary was also added by the priest. He used various items he'd found during his excavations to decorate the pedestal, such as spurs from the 30 Years' War and marcasite, a brassy-coloured metallic stone. At the time, he thought they were cannonballs. They are actually fossils made from iron. I know, but without modern archaeological tools, he just couldn't have known. It's a constantly evolving science, as I know all too well. To get to the next point, let's walk through the narrow passage to the village hall. Be careful of your clothes chafing the walls. What do you think this room was used for? It was originally part of the chalk quarry, but when the locals needed shelter, it became a kind of village square. That square was much larger back then. Father Danicourt would hold celebrations there. He listed them on this table of events. You've probably noticed the snail shape just below. It's the imprint of a fossil, a giant mollusk called an ammonite. It lived in the ocean that occupied northern Europe almost 200 million years ago. Oh yes, in the very distant past we were all underwater. What's more, I spotted another crustacean, an inocerum, which was a giant oyster. Can you see it? Father Danicourt marked it out with black paint. And what about this stone, embedded into the ground? Is it a rostrum, a cutting table, or something else? It's hard to say. Many mysteries still surround the underground city. This room has a particularly rich history. The first significant period was around the turn of the 20th century, more specifically the year 1893. It was then that Father Danicourt, eager to share his discoveries, arranged a meeting for archaeologists. Yes, an actual archaeology conference was held here, underground. He invited other well-known archaeologists, local councillors, justices of the peace, and other religious figures. They all put their names here on this commemorative stone tablet. Danicourt is here too. Have you spotted him? He's at the bottom of the list, number 77. And that's not all. Take a closer look at the monument. There are other irregular markings there too. A new layer of history is being written before your eyes.
De man had zijn jurkjes gedaan aan de kleine.
Stay with all.
The graffiti on the monument was done by soldiers during the First World War. What were they doing here? No battles took place around here. Naours is located just behind the front line, about 30 kilometres west of the trenches. When they were resting or convalescing, soldiers would often try to escape the madness of the war. They would come to the underground city to take their minds off things. Thousands of mostly British and Australian soldiers came to visit the site. They made sure to leave behind a sign that they had been there. The excavations carried out between 2013 and 2018 uncovered 3,200 instances of graffiti created by the troops. These fragile testimonials are records of their names and regiments, and are so useful to us when piecing together their history. You can discover 3 such testimonials by pressing the red, green and yellow buttons. These stories are also featured in the Travelling Soldiers Centre at the end of the tour.
Ska du lyssna på alla de här försöken? Ingen mening. Du sitter på 1 nu.
Du sa att det skulle ligga på 10.
Du är 10.
The graffiti on the monument was done by soldiers during the First.
Vi har inte lyssnat. Oh.
We've come to a place that's very popular with visitors, both past and present. The trap. Father Danicourt can tell us better. Listen to the story he tells all his visitors.
How it worked was simple. In the 1600s, if enemies managed to enter the underground whilst people were taking refuge, the occupants would blow out all the candles. In total darkness, the enemies were lured towards the trap by the sound of children's footsteps running through the tunnels. Trying to trace the sounds, the soldiers would run into the passage and face a violent collision. Meanwhile, on the other side, the villagers were waiting for them. They would use their captives as bargaining chips to ensure they got out of the underground safe and sound.
An interesting tale, no? But how true it is, no one knows. Don't forget, Father Danicourt did like to add a little spice to his tours. The story is consistent with that era, even if he did take certain liberties with the truth. Now it's your turn to try the trap. To cross it safely, keep your head down until you can no longer hear the stones under your feet. Then go to the end of the corridor to point 11. The next part of our journey takes us right to the heart of the 20th century and the Second World War. Although we're still unsure about this period, we do know that the Germans occupied the underground passage between 1941 and 1944. But why? That has yet to be determined. And that's my job as an archaeologist. They didn't leave many traces that they've been here, which doesn't make our job any easier. One thing is definite. Those soldiers did make some improvements to the city. Improvements that are still used today. They installed the first electricity network here. Remember, until then, everyone relied on torches or oil lamps. They also used bricks to build a network of tunnels and staircases. During the 4 years they spent here, the Germans kept all the graffiti left by the soldiers of the First World War as a sign of military respect. During that time, the hiding places were once again used as shelters. During airstrikes, the German soldiers allowed the residents to take refuge with them. Tentative agreement, admittedly, but one that ensured the villagers were protected. Among them was 10-year-old Monique Jonker. She remembers arriving from this corridor. To listen to her story, press the green button. Then retrace your steps to the ancestors' room.
Och vi skulle åka till Möjlighetssamhället.
Frans.
Så jag tror vi ska ta och skynda på lite.
Blijf maar luisteren.
Ja, vi ska ta och skynda på lite. Hej. Johan.
Ja.
Hör du? Ja, det är... Rosenborg som börjar.
Hänger du med?
Ja, jag vet.
What first grabs our attention here is the stone tablet. This monument, a tribute to all the people who walked to the town, is another of Father Danicour's initiatives. This is what he called the Ancestors' Room. However, like the layers that have accumulated to form the site, several eras have been interwoven over the years within this room. The turn of the 20th century, as we have seen, but also an earlier period, the 15th century. At the start of our visit, I told you how the site was first used as a quarry. It was a very busy place. Men were busy extracting chalk from the walls to be used by farmers. They worked in a perpendicular direction, clearing vast areas, which still lend a certain majesty to this room today. The animals are waiting just a few meters away. They pulled the carts carrying the rug up to the surface. Follow them, take the steps, go up the corridor, and turn right to discover the next room.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Millions of years ago, we were under the ocean here too. That's why we see these rows of black spots. They are flints. Like the fossils in the village hall, they were trapped between the layers of chalk. If you look up, you can also make out the different levels of clay that have accumulated over time. Although the sea was here long ago, today we hold concerts here, such as the Grotesque Festival, and serve meals by top chefs. Ask about our upcoming events. But before we indulge our ears and taste buds, let's finish our tour of the town by leaving this room, then turning right. This monument is one of a dozen Calvaries in the village. While the others were in the village, this one was placed here, in the largest room of the underground city. It's a vast, impressive space. As for this large opening behind us, that's the original entrance to the underground city. This is where the quarry workers began their digging, and where the villagers would later come to seek refuge. It was also through this entrance that Father Danicor rediscovered the tunnels and the fact that thousands of soldiers had travelled down to its depths. This is where our underground journey comes to an end, after almost 500 years of history. A history that, I'm sure, will continue to expand as new archaeological discoveries are made. But what will always resonate within these walls is the ability of the men and women who are the history of the underground city of Naours to place the survival of their fellow humans at the heart of everything they did, even in times of conflict. Wait, not too fast. Our tour continues outside the underground city. We are now in the Musée des Métiers Picard. Until the early 20th century, these jobs still existed in most villages. Take this potter in his workshop. He's sitting in front of his wheel. The plate spins so he can shape a lump of clay with his hands. He uses pedals to turn the plate. The clay has to be wet so that it can be moulded. That's why there's a basin on the windowsill. Let's continue, shall we? Walk a few meters to the village square on your left. On the way, you'll come across other trades: the blacksmith, the linen sculptor, and the weaver. Are we all here? We're now in the heart of the village. It's here, in the square, that you'll find a variety of trades. Some have now disappeared. From left to right, we have the knife grinder, the basket maker, the village warden. Listen, I think he has an announcement to make.
Hear ye! Hear ye! A celebration is being organised for the Saint-Jean bonfire in the village square. Come on, come all!
The woman next to him is the lottery woman. If you're feeling lucky, why not buy a few? Get your lottery tickets here. I draw the winner. It could be you. People say that there are only losing numbers in my bag, but that's not true with me. Is the winning ticket yours? The sack beater, as the name suggests, beats sacks to get the flour from the bottom. It's time to leave the village and discover a new place. Travelling Soldiers Centre. Here you can discover the portraits of the soldiers whose stories you heard in the meeting, as well as the stories of the many other soldiers who passed through the corridors of the underground city. Open since 2020, this new area pays tribute to the soldiers from all over the world who enlisted to fight on the Somme during the First World War. Take some time to get to know them. And I leave you to it. It was a pleasure to accompany you. I hope to see you again soon.